The morning begins not with calm but with a jolt. You wake to the sound of rain hammering against the window, 1,000 tiny fists drumming a rhythm that feels eerily similar to the restless beat inside your chest. The phone vibrates before you even sit up, flashing notifications, unanswered emails, a text that simply says, "We need to talk." A calendar reminder of everything you didn't finish yesterday. You rub your eyes, but the fog doesn't clear. Instead, thoughts begin to gather, thick and heavy, like storm clouds forming faster than you can breathe them away. You step outside and the sky is a dull gray canvas. Raindrops slap against your shoulders as if the world itself wants to remind you that you're behind, that you're not ready, that life is slipping further out of control with each passing minute. Inside your head, memories of past mistakes collide with the weight of future worries. Regret whispers about the chances you missed. Fear shouts about the challenges ahead. And frustration rips through you like a sudden gust of wind that turns the umbrella inside out. It feels as if you were standing in the middle of a storm with no shelter in sight, your thoughts swirling, your emotions crashing, every direction blurred. And in that moment you wonder, is this all there is? Am I destined to live trapped in a cycle of chaos I didn't choose, but can't seem to escape? The truth is, you're not the only one who's asked that question. Every man, at some point in his life, has found himself caught in this same downpour, searching desperately for a place to stand where the ground feels steady again. What you're experiencing is not weakness, and it is not a flaw. It is the very human storm of a mind left to wander without guidance. But here's the turning point. There is a compass for this storm. The Stoics, those ancient voices of clarity and strength, faced lives no less turbulent than ours. Yet they discovered a way to remain steady even when the winds howled. They believed peace was not the absence of emotion, but the ability to direct the mind so that emotion does not consume you. And that blueprint, written in their words and proven in the lives of men who endured empires rising and falling, is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. You don't need the rain to stop. You don't need the phone to fall silent or the deadlines to vanish. What you need is a way to walk into the storm without losing yourself inside it, to find within your own mind the strength to stand, the clarity to act, and the calm to weather whatever comes. That's the journey we're about to take together. It's not theory, not abstract philosophy meant for dusty bookshelves, but a set of tools you can carry into the mess of everyday life. Step by step, lesson by lesson, we'll learn how to quiet the noise, redirect the chaos, and discover the stillness that's always been inside you, waiting beneath the waves. So stay with me. Don't skip a moment, because sometimes a single sentence is enough to shift the course of your entire day. And sometimes one idea, if truly lived, can change the entire direction of your life. And if you find resonance here, if you feel the pull toward that kind of inner strength, then you're already part of something bigger. This channel, True Stoic Way, is a community of men and women walking the same path, sharing the same desire to build a life of clarity, discipline, and unshakable calm. Subscribe if you want to keep walking with us, not as a follower but as a fellow traveler in the storm. Now let's begin. 1. Finding happiness within the mind. Imagine for a moment that your mind is not a storm, not a battlefield, but a canvas. Each day, when you wake, that canvas is blank, stretched tight, waiting for the strokes you choose to make. You may not control the weather outside or the messages that flash on your phone, but you do control the brush in your hand. And with every thought, every focus, you are painting the mood, the tone, the very atmosphere of your day. Some mornings, before you've even poured the first cup of coffee, you've already dipped the brush into darker colors. You think of the deadlines you missed, the mistakes still echoing, the approval you didn't receive, and the lines appear heavy, messy, streaked with frustration. The painting becomes a blur of regret and anxiety, and before the day truly begins, you've already convinced yourself that it is ruined. But there is another choice, one the Stoics reminded us of time and again. You can set down the darker shades, you can pick up brighter ones, and you can decide to sketch the possibility instead of the problem. What if, instead of starting the morning with, "I'm already behind," you began with, "I have another chance today"? What if, instead of replaying yesterday's failure, you asked, "How will I use this moment differently?" The canvas doesn't come pre-colored. It is you, your thoughts, that give it form. I knew a man once who believed happiness was waiting for him just beyond the next milestone. He thought he would finally be at peace when he got the promotion, when he bought the bigger house, when he drove the car he dreamed about as a boy. And yes, each time he reached one of those goals, the canvas lit up for a moment, bold streaks of color, flashes of joy. But soon after, the painting dulled again, because his hand was still dipping into the same shades of worry, comparison, and hunger for more. He was painting with colors borrowed from the outside world, and they always faded. It wasn't until he learned to look inward, to change not the world around him but the way he interpreted it, that the painting finally shifted. He began small. On mornings when his thoughts ran toward anxiety, he paused and deliberately chose to think of one reason to be grateful. Sometimes it was as simple as the warmth of the coffee mug in his hand, sometimes the laughter of his child at breakfast. That single thought, tiny, almost insignificant, was like a drop of bright paint on the canvas. And when repeated day after day, the painting began to change. This is what the Stoics meant when they said happiness comes not from events, but from our judgments of them. Seneca once reminded us that true joy is not chained to the future. It is in the present moment, here, alive, waiting to be noticed. The canvas is not painted by what happens to you, but by the story you tell yourself about what it means. Pause for a moment and think back to your own life. How many times have you been surrounded by good things, family gathered around a meal, a quiet walk in the evening, a simple moment of health, yet your mind was elsewhere? Worrying about what you hadn't done, what others might be saying, what tomorrow could bring. The joy was there in front of you, but your brush was busy painting shadows. To live as a Stoic is not to deny that darker colors exist. It is to refuse to let them dominate the canvas. It is to acknowledge them, yes, but then to choose where your hand lingers, which colors you allow to spread. Every day you are the artist. Every thought is a stroke, and the masterpiece or the mess that is not delivered by fate, but created by your focus. So the question is not, when will I finally be happy? The question is, what am I painting with my mind right now? Because happiness has never been hidden in a distant promotion, a new car, or the approval of others. It has always been within reach, quiet, available, waiting for you to notice it, waiting for you to choose it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Hold the brush with intention and watch the picture of your life transform before your eyes. 2. Mastering the river instead of being swept away. Picture your mind as a river. Some days it flows gently, the current steady, the surface reflecting light like glass. On those days, even when small obstacles appear, you can step into the water and feel balanced, even calm. But there are other days when the current surges, white water crashing over rocks, pulling everything in its path downstream. On those days, if you step in without awareness, you are carried away, tossed against the jagged edges of emotion until you are bruised, exhausted, and lost. This is what happens when anger, anxiety, or fear takes control. Left unchecked, the mind doesn't guide you, it drags you. And most of us know that feeling all too well. I remember a man who worked tirelessly for a promotion, pouring himself into long hours, believing recognition was near. One afternoon, in a meeting, a colleague dismissed his idea with a smirk. In an instant, the current inside him surged. His face flushed, his voice rose, and words spilled out that he could not take back. He accused, he insulted, he made the room tense. For a few seconds he felt powerful, like finally he had spoken the truth. But when the meeting ended, silence followed him and opportunities quietly disappeared. He had won the moment but lost the path. What if, in that moment, he had paused for just 10 seconds? What if he had taken one deep breath, letting the anger settle like sediment in the water, and asked himself, is this worth trading my peace for? Will this reaction move me closer to what I truly want or further away? That pause would have been the dam that redirected the raging current into calm waters. Instead of being swept away, he could have chosen where to steer. This is the heart of Stoic practice. The Stoics taught that events themselves are not what harm us. It is the judgment we attach to them that creates pain. A smirk in a meeting is not inherently destructive. It is only destructive when you interpret it as proof of your worthlessness, or as a call to war, or as a wound you must avenge. The event is neutral. The river is simply water. But if you let your mind rush without guidance, it becomes a flood. Seneca once said that anger, if left unchecked, causes more damage than the injury that provoked it. Think about that. How often have we replayed an insult, magnified a slight, until the memory itself hurts more than the moment ever did? It's not the splash of water that drowns you, it's being pulled under by the current. The practice, then, is not to eliminate strong emotions, but to guide them as you would guide a river with careful channels. When you feel the surge, the first step is not to fight. Fighting the current only exhausts you faster. Instead, pause, breathe, observe where it is pulling you. Ask, what story am I telling myself about this? Is it the only story, or can I choose another? That space between impulse and action, that is your power. Think of it this way, the river will always move. You cannot freeze it, you cannot stop its flow. But you can learn to steer a boat across it, to direct its energy rather than be destroyed by it. A man who has trained his mind can walk into conflict and remain anchored, not because he feels nothing, but because he refuses to let emotion decide for him. He chooses the course instead of surrendering to the current. Life will keep sending moments that stir the waters, a careless word, a broken promise, a sudden change in plans. You cannot control the river itself, but you can control how you meet it. You can step in with panic, thrashing against the waves, or you can step in with awareness, or in hand, ready to guide yourself forward. Ask yourself now, when the river rises in you, will you be carried wherever it wants, or will you decide where to go? The difference between chaos and calm, between regret and strength, lies in that one choice. And in that choice, you discover freedom. 3. Don't let imagination become the enemy. Inside every one of us lives a storyteller. It speaks without pause, weaving tales in the background of our days. Sometimes this voice tells us harmless fables, small worries that fade as quickly as they come. But other times, it spins tragedies dark, elaborate scripts that never took place, yet feel so real that our hearts race as if they had. Think about it. How many times have you received a message that said, "We need to talk"? In that instant, the inner storyteller grabs the pen and begins writing. The plot it invents is rarely kind. She's leaving me. My boss is firing me. I must have done something wrong. You spend the entire day pacing, stomach knotted, mind replaying confrontations that have not happened. And when the meeting finally comes, what do you hear? Perhaps it's good news, a promotion, or even a surprise your partner wanted to share. Nothing you feared was true. You suffered all day, but the suffering came from a story one written in your own head. This is the trap of imagination untamed. Our minds are brilliant storytellers. They can invent entire worlds in seconds, fill them with conflict, and cast us as the hero or the victim. But brilliance without guidance becomes sabotage. The Stoics warned us about this long ago. Men are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. What disturbs you is not reality, it's the inner novel your mind insists on writing. Think of how many fears in your life never came true. The speech you thought you would ruin that went fine. The rejection you dreaded that never arrived. The health scare that turned out to be nothing. Yet, in the moment, your body responded as if disaster was certain. Your pulse quickened, your breathing shortened, your chest tightened. All from a story. So here is the question the Stoics challenge us to ask. If your imagination is powerful enough to torment you with fiction, why not harness it to strengthen you with hope? If your mind insists on telling stories, then choose to become its editor. Direct the narrative. Refuse to let it publish horror after horror without your consent. Instead of picturing failure before a presentation, imagine the audience nodding, engaged, maybe even applauding at the end. Instead of assuming that silence from a friend means betrayal, consider that they are busy or planning something kind for you. This is not naive optimism. It is training, a deliberate decision to give your mind scripts that serve you rather than destroy you. Let me be clear, the goal is not to silence imagination. That is impossible. The mind will always create stories, that is its nature. The goal is to see those stories for what they are, drafts, not destiny. When fear whispers, "This will end badly," you can respond, "That's just one version of the story. I will not treat it as fact." When anxiety paints worst-case scenarios, you can say, "This is fiction until proven otherwise." In doing so, you take the pen back. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He was right. Reality has enough weight of its own. Why burden yourself with shadows that don't exist? If storms are coming, you will face them when they arrive. But why live through them twice, once in your mind and once in the world? So the next time your storyteller begins its tragic tale, pause. Whisper to yourself, "This is only a story. I choose how it ends." Close your eyes if you must, and rewrite the scene, one where you succeed. One where peace is possible, one where courage is your companion. Over time, this practice builds resilience. The same imagination that once chained you becomes the very force that frees you. The mind will always be a storyteller. But whether it tells you nightmares or hope-filled visions, that choice is yours. Don't let imagination be your enemy. Train it to be your ally. 4. Redefining emotions. Imagine standing in a concert hall as the same melody flows across the room. One listener hears sadness in every note, their eyes welling up with memories of loss. Another hears beauty, quiet, reflective, almost healing, and they leave the hall with peace in their chest. The song did not change. What changed was the meaning each person gave to it. This is the same with your emotions. The sensation of a racing heartbeat can be labeled panic by one person, yet called excitement by another. To the fearful, it is a sign of danger. To the athlete stepping onto the field, it is proof that they are alive, engaged, ready to perform. The rhythm of the heart did not change, only the label did. The Stoics knew this well. They did not view emotions as enemies to be destroyed, but as signals, data points waiting to be interpreted. Anxiety is not inherently destructive. It might simply be energy asking to be directed. Anger is not pure evil. It may be a signal that something deeply matters to you. Fear is not a curse. It is a reminder that you are standing at the edge of growth. The power of emotion lies not in its arrival, but in the meaning you attach to it. Most of us never pause long enough to question that meaning. We feel the surge, slap a label on it: bad, unbearable, shameful, and in that instant, the feeling becomes heavier than it was. By calling it an enemy, we double its weight. But here is the paradox. The harder you resist an emotion, the louder it becomes. Tell yourself, "I must not feel nervous," and the nerves grow stronger. Try not to think of a red apple, and instantly the image flashes in your mind. Suppression intensifies what you hope to avoid. What if, instead, you welcomed the emotion, but gave it a different name? This is not fear. This is fuel. This is not stress. This is energy reminding me that something matters. This is not weakness. This is proof that I care. Suddenly, the music of the moment shifts. What once sounded like noise becomes rhythm you can move with. Think of a time when you labeled your emotions too quickly. Maybe you said, "I'm too anxious to speak up in this meeting." But what if you had told yourself, I care enough to feel this strongly. This energy can help me focus. Would the outcome have been different? Would you have walked into that room with more strength than fear? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That includes power over the labels you attach to what you feel. The event itself may be beyond your control, but how you name the emotion is always within your reach. So the next time you feel the tightness in your chest or the heat rising in your face, stop and ask, what story am I telling about this feeling? And what other story could I tell? That single shift from automatic labeling to intentional reframing is the doorway from suffering to strength. And remember this, emotions are not here to destroy you. They are here to instruct you. They are not punishments. They are teachers. The question is not whether you will feel them, because you will, but whether you will learn from them or drown in the labels you hastily give. If this message resonates, if you've ever felt trapped by emotions that seemed bigger than you, know this: you are not powerless. You are the composer. You decide what the music of your life sounds like. And here's where I invite you to take part. In the comments, share one emotion you want to redefine starting today. Call anxiety, energy. Call fear, courage. Call stress a sign you care. Your words may be the very thing another person in this community needs to hear. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to True Stoic Way. Not because this channel has all the answers, but because walking this path together, sharing these practices, reminding each other of the power we hold, is how we grow stronger. One choice, one thought, one new label at a time. 5. Understanding the mechanics of the mind. Think of your mind as a machine, complex, powerful, capable of astonishing performance when cared for, yet prone to break down when left neglected. Like an engine that hasn't been tuned in years, it begins to rattle, overheat, and grind. Thoughts misfire, emotions screech like gears in need of oil, and before long you're no longer driving the machine, it's dragging you. The Stoics reminded us that we have power over this machine, if only we learn how it works. And modern science echoes the same truth. What you repeat, you reinforce. Every thought, every focus, every story you allow the mind to cycle through becomes a groove in the machinery, a path that wires itself deeper each time. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to shape itself according to the patterns it rehearses. The more often you run a thought, the smoother the pathway becomes, until the machine starts running it automatically, like a default program. This is why worry becomes habit. This is why self-doubt becomes familiar. Not because they are true, but because you've trained the machine to play them on loop. I once knew a man who carried the belief, "I am not good enough," like a hidden program in his mind. It surfaced in meetings, in relationships, even in the quiet moments before sleep. And the more he thought it, the more real it became, not because the world confirmed it, but because his machine replayed it until the groove was carved deep. One day, at the suggestion of a mentor, he began a simple practice. Each night, before bed, he wrote a single line in a notebook: "I am improving." At first, it felt hollow, like scribbling lies onto paper, but he continued. Night after night, line after line, the repetition began to etch a new groove into the machinery of his mind. After 30 days, something subtle shifted. The old program, "I am not enough," didn't vanish, but it no longer dominated. It had to compete with a new script, one that began to feel just as believable. And with time, his confidence grew, not because the world suddenly changed, but because he had adjusted the machine that filtered the world. This is the dual power of Stoicism and science together. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." Today, neuroscience tells us the same thing. Neurons that fire together, wire together. The grooves you carve become the highways your thoughts travel. The labels you repeat become the stories you live. But here's the danger. A machine left unchecked doesn't idle, it runs wherever momentum takes it. Negative loops, catastrophic predictions, old wounds replayed like broken records. And every time you indulge them, you tighten the bolts that keep them spinning. The invitation, then, is to become the mechanic of your own mind. To open the hood, listen to the rattling, and ask, what program am I running right now? Is this moving me toward clarity or chaos? If the answer is chaos, you do not have to surrender. You can begin to rewire. You can choose a new thought, small at first, like, I am improving. Repeat it until it becomes a path the machine prefers. Think of it as maintenance, not miracle. You don't change the machinery in one day, just as you don't build muscle in one workout. But with steady effort, the machine begins to hum more smoothly. The gears align, the noise quiets. And suddenly, you are in the driver's seat again, not a passenger. The Stoic truth is simple. Your mind is not broken. It is powerful, adaptable, and waiting for your direction. The grooves it runs are not destiny. They are practice. And practice can be changed. So tonight, try this. Before you close your eyes, write one line that you want your machine to repeat tomorrow. One line that leads you toward calm instead of chaos. Watch how, in 30 days, the entire mechanism begins to sound different. Because your thoughts are not just passing sparks, they are blueprints. And the life you live tomorrow will be built from the programs you choose to run today. 6. You are not your thoughts. Step onto a balcony overlooking the busy street. Below you, traffic surges, cars honking, engines roaring, brakes screeching as lights change from green to red. Some vehicles dart recklessly between lanes. Others crawl forward inch by inch. The noise rises. The movement never stops. From the balcony, you see it all, but you are not in it. You are not stuck in the congestion, nor are you dragged by the chaos of the street. You are simply watching. This is the stance you can take with your own mind. Thoughts are like traffic, some smooth and steady, others frantic and loud. They come and go, rush and collide, sometimes leaving wreckage behind. But you are not the traffic. You are the observer standing above it, free to notice without being swept away. The mistake most of us make is stepping off the balcony and right into the middle of the road. We let every thought demand our attention. Every passing car become a vehicle we feel compelled to ride. One anxious thought swerves in, and suddenly we are gripping the wheel, convinced it will crash. One angry thought speeds by, and we're in the driver's seat, fueled by rage. By confusing ourselves with the traffic, we give it power it never deserved. Here is where Stoic wisdom meets modern science. The Stoics taught that thoughts are impressions, temporary, fleeting, not truths unless we assent to them. Today, psychologists call one of the simplest techniques for regaining control effect labeling, naming what you feel. When you pause and say to yourself, this is anxiety, or this is frustration, or this is fear, something powerful happens. The emotion shrinks from a storm into a signal. By giving it a label, you create distance. You return to the balcony. Try it now. The next time your chest tightens or your mind begins racing, stop and name it. Don't resist, don't suppress. Simply say, this is stress. Notice the shift. The thought is no longer fused with your identity. It is no longer you. It is traffic passing below, and you are standing above, watching. Mindfulness works in the same way. When the noise of the street grows overwhelming, bring your focus to something steady, the breath rising and falling, the simple sensation of air filling your lungs. It's like gripping the balcony railing, grounding yourself in what is real, while the chaos moves on below. In that moment, you remember, the cars will not stop. The noise will not vanish. But you do not have to live in the middle of the road. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Notice he said mind, not thoughts. Because the mind is vast, steady, the balcony itself. Thoughts are just the vehicles moving through it. So let this truth sink deep. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them, the witness above them, the presence that observes without being consumed. And when you truly accept this, a new kind of freedom opens. Suddenly, the roar of traffic is not terrifying, it's background noise. You no longer need every car to disappear before you find peace. You only need to remember where you stand. Tonight, when the mind begins to replay its endless scenes, old mistakes, future fears, imagined judgments, step back. Stand on the balcony. Whisper to yourself, "These are just thoughts. I am the one watching." And notice how slowly the noise loses its grip. If this resonates with you, share it. Leave a comment with the simple affirmation, "I am not my thoughts." It's a reminder not only for yourself, but for someone else scrolling through, searching for the same freedom. And if you haven't yet, join us here on True Stoic Way. Subscribe, not to escape the traffic, but to practice standing above it together, to become a community that remembers. Peace is not found in silencing every thought, but in refusing to mistake them for who we are. 7. Daily discipline, training like a Stoic warrior. Strength of mind is not built in a single moment of inspiration. Just as no one walks into a gym, lifts weights once, and expects to be powerful for life, no one practices Stoicism one evening and wakes up unshakable the next day. Discipline is a daily ritual. Clarity is not a gift, it is a muscle, and like all muscles, it grows through repetition. The Stoics lived as if training for battle, not because they were obsessed with war, but because they knew life itself brings ambushes. Each day is unpredictable, an insult here, a delay there, a sudden loss you never saw coming. If you are untrained, these moments crush you. But if you are disciplined, you meet them like a warrior, steady, prepared, alive. So how do we train? Begin with a simple routine. 5 minutes of breath, 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of gratitude. 15 minutes in total, a quarter of an hour you carve out each day, not as a luxury, but as survival. Start with breath. Sit in stillness, close your eyes, and let the air move in and out as if it were the tide of the ocean. Count each inhale, each exhale, until you reach 10. Then begin again. Your mind will wander, it always does. But each time you bring it back, you strengthen the muscle of attention. The Stoics taught that mastery begins with directing your own mind, and breath is the first anchor. Then, move to writing. Take a page and unload the weight that sits inside you. Write down the fears that keep circling, the regrets that still cling, the anger that hasn't dissolved. Don't censor, don't polish, just release. Once the words are out, ask yourself, what triggered this? What can I control? What can I release? This is how journaling transforms from venting into training. It forces you to confront the mind's programs and rewrite them with intention. Marcus Aurelius did the same in his meditations, not to impress anyone, but to discipline his own thoughts. Finally, gratitude. Write down 3 things, however small, that bring light to your life. A friend's laughter, the way the sun fell on your face that morning, even the fact that you woke up at all. Gratitude sharpens your eyes to see the good that anxiety tries to hide. It's not denial, it's balance. It's remembering that even on the hardest days, the canvas is not all shadow. Alongside these practices lies another tool the Stoics sharpened, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. At first, it sounds grim. Imagine the worst-case scenario. But the purpose is not to spare it, is preparation. When you visualize the worst, you strip it of its power. You see that even if the meeting goes poorly, even if the relationship ends, even if the plan fails, you will still endure. The fear shrinks because the unknown becomes known. The warrior who has rehearsed defeat no longer trembles before the enemy. Do this gently. Before an important day, pause and ask, what is the worst that could happen? Could I survive it? Could I learn from it? More often than not, the answer is yes. And with that answer, courage grows. Over time, these practices, the breath, the writing, the gratitude, the premeditation, become your armor. You may still face storms, but you no longer step into them naked. You carry a shield forged from habit, a sword sharpened by reflection. And here is the truth. There is no finish line. You will not arrive at a day when nothing bothers you, but you will arrive at a place where nothing controls you, where every morning you rise, sharpen your tools, and step into life prepared. That is the Stoic warrior's way. So try it tonight. 15 minutes. 5 for breath, 5 for writing, 5 for gratitude. Add 1 moment of imagining the worst and realizing you can still stand. And watch how, slowly but surely, your inner strength multiplies. If this practice speaks to you, share it below. Comment with 1 discipline you will commit to: breath, writing, gratitude, or the courage to face the worst. And if you want to keep walking this path, subscribe to True Stoic Way. This is not just a channel. It is a training ground for the mind, a community of warriors preparing each day for the battles of life. Join us, train with us, and discover the freedom that comes from discipline. The storm is still there. The rain still falls, heavy and insistent, drumming against the pavement, pouring down the sides of buildings. The sky has not cleared, the streets have not fallen silent, but something has changed. The man who once stumbled into the day already consumed by dread now walks with a steadiness that was not there before. His shoulders are wet, his shoes splash in the puddles, yet his pace is calm, his breath unhurried. He is no longer dragged by the current of his thoughts, no longer terrified by the storyteller whispering tragedies in his ear. He is present, he is aware. He is free, not because the storm has ended, but because he has learned to hold the wheel while it rages. This is the truth the Stoics handed down across centuries. Peace is not the absence of storms. Peace is the ability to face them without losing your direction. No philosophy, no practice, no teaching can erase the chaos of life. But discipline can give you a compass. Reflection can steady your hands. Daily training can make you the kind of man who, when the thunder rolls, does not panic, he sails. Remember this: you will still feel anger. You will still feel fear. You will still face days when anxiety pounds against your chest like rain against glass. But those feelings do not define you, and they do not control you. You can step back, breathe, name them, and steer anyway. That is freedom, not the fantasy of calm seas, but the strength to remain upright when the waves rise. Look back at the path we've walked together. From realizing the mind can create happiness, to directing its current, to taming imagination, to redefining emotions, to understanding the machinery of thought, to stepping onto the balcony above your own mental traffic, to training daily as a warrior, we have built something, not perfection, but a framework, a practice, a way of standing firm no matter how loud the storm becomes. And now it's your turn, not tomorrow, not someday, today. Comment below with 1 discipline you will begin: the breath, the writing, the gratitude, or the courage to imagine the worst and see that you can still endure. Name it. Commit to it. Let this be the first step on your own Stoic path. And if you haven't already, join us here at True Stoic Way. Subscribe, not as a formality, but as a decision to keep training, to keep walking this road with others who refuse to be ruled by chaos. This is not about following. This is about standing side by side, sharpening one another, building a community where inner peace is not an exception, but a standard. The storm will not end, but you can change within it. You can walk through the rain, calm, steady, unbroken. You can live not as a victim of your thoughts, but as their master. That is the Stoic promise. That is the life waiting for you to claim. So take the step, hold the wheel, walk into the storm with peace that cannot be taken.